So, Tom, what's your take, first of all, on the now shrinking part of the pie that the iPhone has?
So the good news for Apple is that they've got investors to focus on what's next for Apple, and you just touched on a lot of it. But I think as you saw today in Qualcomm's earnings, you have a mature market for smartphones, and you've seen it in the iPhones with declining unit sales the last couple of quarters. And I do anticipate that that'll be the case until we have a 5G device likely next fall. But for Apple, really, it's about payments. It's about financial services, beyond payments, healthcare, as you talked about, premium video content, advertising, but done in a way that protects the privacy of the consumer. So I think the story for Apple, either the services story or the non-hardware story, depending on how you want to phrase it, it's a good one. And I think that investors are warming up to it, which is why the stocks rebounded so significantly after that earnings pre-announcement late last year.
But they do go hand in hand. In order for people to use the services, they need to be using the iPhone. And in order for more people to use the services, perhaps more people need to be using the iPhone. How does Apple continue to drive both things in the middle of a smartphone slump?
Yep. So the key for Apple is then their installed base. But the good news is it isn't as if iPhone users are switching to other devices. They're just holding on to their iPhones for an extended period of time. And then again, to the extent that we have a catalyst on the horizon, what would inspire these iPhone users to upgrade? It's a 5G device. That looks like it's going to happen next year. So again, so long as they can maintain their installed base, keep people using Apple products, then I think it's easier to overlay the services on top of it, either premium news, premium video content, etc. And I think that has the stock really well positioned here.
Now, we were speaking to a guest yesterday, Malik of True Ventures, who said many of Apple's services are pretty mediocre. There are some that are doing increasingly well, like Apple Pay. Do you see Apple being able to Appleize, some of these other services and make them great, like they have done some of their hardware products?
Yeah, so A, that's an excellent question, and B, we certainly don't think mediocre when we think Apple. So if you look at the premium video content, they've certainly lined themselves up with A-plus Hollywood talent when you think of Oprah Winfrey and Steven Spielberg. You bring up a great point on Apple Pay. So some years ago, if we were having this conversation, my expectations were really low for Apple Pay, so they've far exceeded my expectations. And then part of what they're doing in hardware is more than the smartphone, to the extent that you're seeing strength in wearable devices such as the Apple Watch. So I am a believer that, generally speaking, low quality and Apple don't go hand in hand. So I would never think of their products or services as low quality. I think of the A-plus Hollywood talent they have. I think of the success they've had with Apple Pay, and I expect that to, extend to some of their other products and services.
Now, looking out into the future, do you see the iPhone continuing to be a shrinking part of the pie, and how low does it get in terms of a percentage of revenue share?
So another excellent question, and absolutely. So I think for Apple to be successful 5 years from now, smartphone sales may have to be less than 1/3 of total revenue. And then the big question, if we had this conversation, say 6 to 12 months ago, was where is Apple in the smart home? Because the concern was, and I think there's still a concern today, that either Alexa devices or Google Assistant devices will dominate the Internet of Things within the connected home. So the HomePod, I think, was disappointing for Apple. So we'll see if there's another way for them to, go after the connected home. But I think a healthy Apple 5 years from now generates less than 1/3 of their total revenue from smartphones.